Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Let's see, why don't we give an extra minute here? I think we're expecting a few more folks.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, how's it going, Peter?
It's going. Thank you.
Maybe wait another quick minute. Hope everyone's having a great day out there.
Good morning.
Good morning. All right, why don't we go ahead and get started? Yeah, good morning, good evening, everyone, wherever you might be. Today we're going to give a demo of the FogMAN beta that we've got, and also we've sent you already access to the code and a startup guide, and we'll walk briefly through that, and then see if anyone has any questions, and hopefully this gets you on your adventure with FogMAN. We're pretty excited about FogMAN. It's our centralized management for FogLAMP. So let's see, let me share the screen here. So I'll run through a few slides quickly and hopefully focus more on the technology than the deck, but tell you a little bit about what FogMAN is. Of course, FogLAMP is what FogMAN manages. I'm sure you're all already familiar with that, but FogLAMP is our IoT framework solution for bringing data in from anywhere, sending it to anywhere, and doing management on the edge, especially transformations on the edge and events on the edge, from things as simple as detecting anomalies like if a temperature gets too high to running ML models out on the edge to detect various things. So FogMAN is our centralized management solution for that, for FogLAMP. And kind of starting off with provisioning, not as related to FogMAN, but if you want to, have a large number of deployments of FogLAMPs, the first thing is that you've got to actually install them. And so FogLAMPs can be, you can get them from various hardware vendors pre-installed, or it's very easy to construct them yourselves. It runs on a number of Linux OSs. And then FogMAN, one of its first features is it can auto-discover FogLAMPs, and I'll show you that. So if you boot a FogLAMP, then FogMAN can discover it and auto-import whatever configuration you already have inside that FogLAMP. And then from there on, everything is deployed via FogMAN. So FogLAMP is really all about centralized configuration. And I'll walk through some of the details of this, but all the configuration for all the FogLAMPs is stored centrally. And then there's a versioning system that allows you to do transactional updates. So you can make a number of changes and then roll those changes out in a batch. And then, of course, it also allows you to roll back to previous versions. And those versions typically are linear. You've got 1, then 2 builds on 1, 3 builds on 2, and so forth, but they can also be hierarchical. So you can go back and have a 1.1 that's based on version 1. And there's really three things contained, or three buckets of stuff in each of the versions.
Bill, can you let Frank in?
Absolutely. Actually, Peter, can you handle that side of things? I'm not really, or Ashwin? I don't see anything on my screen about folks. Ashwin, do you? Are you on top?
Should be in now.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Yeah, actually, I appreciate the letting us know about that. So there's three buckets of stuff in each of the versions. The first is the software itself. So if you have fog lamps, they have plugins, including north and south plugins. And so when you do a version update, the software in the new versions is included in that version. And then there are all the configurations for FogLAMP and the plugins. And then there's also scheduling information. FogLAMP has a robust scheduler for bringing up processes and at different times or at different periods or just at startup. There's a concept of templates in FogMAN. And so templates are the idea that you can set up a configuration once and then roll it out to multiple places. And then the templates are hierarchical, so you could define the definition of, say, a pump, and then you could have a child template that's, say, a pump in San Diego, and a peer that's a pump in Houston, and then you can, if you deploy a new pump in Houston, you can leverage the templates that already exist. And I should mention that the templates in this beta version are all statically configured, and so they aren't manageable by the UI in this version. But we can work with you if you get into template building and you want to make additional ones. We can work with you on that. FogMAN and FogLAMP are very secure, so the authentication to FogMAN is via OAuth 2. And so today, FogMAN comes with its own OAuth 2 server, but in a future version, it'll tie into existing infrastructure that you might have, so you can have a single sign-on, that sort of thing. And all the control and messaging and monitoring messages are sent under HTTPS, so encrypted that way. And then fog lamps are each managed by certificate, and so that certificate repository is all stored inside FogMAN, so that's all centralized. And also, it's probably worth calling out, so FogLAMP, when you bring it up, it comes up with a default username and password. As soon as you bring it under FogMAN, FogMAN automatically converts it to be managed via certificate instead of password, and assigns it a certificate. And then, as I mentioned, there's versioning, so additions, deletions, and versionings is all maintained and can be audited or rolled back. And then on the FogLAMP side, from the sensor to FogLAMP is secured where it's supported, so via OPC UA, for example. And then when FogLAMPs talk to other FogLAMPs, that's secured via HTTPS. And then when FogLAMP is sent to some destination like Pi or Splunk or Kafka or Google Cloud, then it's encrypted via the mechanisms each of those provide. And then also FogLAMP does monitoring, so not just managing, FogMAN does monitoring of FogLAMPs. So you can see the health of the FogLAMP devices and the services within them. And then you can also get a basic understanding of what data is flowing through each of the FogLAMPs. So this is the demo that I've got set up that I'll show you. And the idea here is that we have 5 FogLAMPs named Fog 11, 12, 21, 22, and 23. And they're going to communicate to a Pi server. And there's some simulated, we have simulated here 2 fans and 3 pumps. And everything else is real in the demo. So the fog lamps are real, the Pi server is real, the FogMAN is real, but of course we don't have actual fans and pumps. And then we also have 2 extra fog lamps, and they'll be, so the first thing we'll show you is management of those devices, and then we'll show you these new fog lamps being brought under FogMAN. So that's what I got for that. Any questions before I go into the demo of it? All right. Let's see. So this is FogMAN. See if I can get this Zoom thing out of the way. Yeah, I'll just leave it there. So yeah, there we go. So I'll walk through the main screens here. There's the first screen shows fog lamps, which of course are the main things that FogMAN is really about, is managing the fog lamps. And you can see we've got the 5 that I mentioned before, fog 11, 12, 21, 22, 23. It shows you this is the number of messages that have flowed into it and flowed out of it, and you'll see these change every 20 seconds or so. And then it also shows you an icon if there is configuration on the south and on the north, and you can hover over those and see details of what's actually being collected there. And then we can actually dive into those fog lamps, and we can manage various configuration. Typically, you don't need to deal with a lot of what's inside the fog lamps, but if you need to do any kind of advanced configuration, you certainly can. So you could go into the advanced configuration for the fan speed, for example. And so that's under the categories, or really the configurations. And then the schedules, those can also be managed. So there are various things that are scheduled inside FogLAMP, how often it purges data, the configuration for how often the south plugins are fired up, and stats collection and backup and various other kinds of things. And then there are the software components that are installed. In this case, we're using Sinusoid and Random Walk to simulate data. Typically, the software also, typically you don't have to deal with any of this because it's all held under the templates. So a template will be defined that will say it uses the Sinusoid plugin, and that it needs to be scheduled at a particular time, and that the default configuration is what it is, and then you can leverage those. But you can individually change those. So those are the fog lamps under management. You can also, you see the green dot indicates that it's healthy. It's being pinged every 15 seconds. That's configurable. And if you hover over it, you can see each of the microservices that's running inside it. So this particular one, there's the storage and core, or the central microservices. And then it has 2 south plugins, the speed and vibration that it's collecting. Then the next page is about the devices that are on the south side of FogLAMP. We call those machines. So in this case, there's 2 fans and 3 pumps, or 5 pumps, and 5 of those are connected to fog lamps, and then 2 of them are not yet. These have been introduced in a previous setup that I did. And then you've got external systems, and in this case, we've got Pi, and it shows you what's connected to Pi. The history shows the versioning. That's the various versions in the history. And you can see we started off, we had a version 1.0, and that was where we added the fog lamps. And then we added fans and pumps. And then we connected the fans and the pumps to the fog lamps in version 1.2.0. And then we connected the fog lamps to Pi in version 1.3.0. And we can see that version 1.3.0 is the one that's live. And locked indicates that this is a historic version that's already is either deployed or has been deployed. And if we want, we can actually walk through the previous changes that were made. So if I walk back to say version 1.1.0, I can see what happened inside there. I can see that these are the fog lamps that changes were introduced into, which are all 5 of them. And then we can see that in this particular version, we introduced each of the machines. So 3 pumps, or 5 pumps, and 2 fans. And in 1.2.0, we can see that we collected various features from each of those, or parameters from each of those devices. So in this case, we have pump 1, and the temperature from pump 1 was sent to fog 21, and you can see each of the ones that were changed there. So this is really handy for going back and seeing previous versions, especially if you have a large deployment, you can imagine some complexity, and so it's valuable to go back and see what the past was like if you're debugging some kind of issue. If you click on one of these rows, it'll actually, all the other screens in FogMAN will show you what's going on in that version. So for example, if we click on, I've already got 1.2.0 clicked here, and you can see it turned gray. And then at the top here, we get a warning that says you're looking at version 1.2.0. This is a historic version for reference and cannot be modified. And so the reason it puts up that warning is that as we walk back through the previous screens, we'll see the world as it existed in 1.2.0. So we can go back to FogLAMPs here, and we see that we have, in 1.2.0, we had already configured the south plugins, so you can see each of those, but we hadn't yet configured the north plugins. And if we go to the external systems page, we can see that nothing is on here. So you can kind of, and if we had advanced configuration inside each of these, we could dig in and see how the world existed in that previous version. So I'll go back to version 1.3.0. The next screen is user management. And so we have, there are 3 different types of users that can be created. The default has a user called admin, and which is an admin. It has administrator privileges. There are 2 other levels of rights you can give users. One is to be a viewer, so that it can go through and view various data, but it cannot actually change anything. And then there's editors who can change configurations, but they can't create users. And in time, we expect there will be other types of users that will add auditors, for example, who might come in and maybe not be able to see the data, but be able to see the configuration changes, that sort of thing. And in this particular case, I've created these 3 users, and the first thing it does is it emails them to verify their email address. And in this case, I haven't actually verified the email address. You go and get your email and click on a link to set a password and so forth. But once, and that's the reason for this red question mark, otherwise you would see a user type here. There's various configurations that you can set up. The only one that really matters, you probably don't want to change any of the OAuth 2 or the GUI configuration, but FogMAN sends emails on various occasions. In the current beta, it's really sends it for that user management capability. So to verify a user's email address. Today, alerts are not done inside FogMAN. That's in an upcoming release. But we ship it with a default Gmail user and password. You probably want to set this to your own SMTP server. Then there's an audit log, and that shows you each of the changes that were done. And so you can go back and see what's actually changed. And the last thing is the GUI settings. And yeah, so typically you won't ever need to go to this screen. The way that that FogMAN works is that there's a existing on the FogMAN server, there's FogMAN core, and then there's FogMAN GUI. And the FogMAN GUI is really just HTML5 pages that are delivered to the browser. So the GUI is really living inside your laptop and running inside your laptop. So because the GUI is a separate entity, it needs to know the IP address to talk to FogMAN. And so, and typically that's the same IP address as itself, because the GUI and the FogMAN are typically running on the same machine. So it comes up with the default IP address of itself. However, you can run the GUI on a different machine. And in fact, we have folks that are actually doing that, and so or have a desire to do that. And so you can install the GUI on a different machine, and then if you do that, you'll need to pre-configure the IP address to go to the appropriate place. And then the only other GUI setting is how often it pings each of the FogLAMPs and each of the devices. So you can set this to be anywhere from 5 to 30 seconds. And another feature that's not in this beta, but that'll be in our coming up as part of this beta cycle, is we have a management agent. So in the beta, FogMAN talks to the FogLAMPs. It pushes configurations and monitors the devices. It's in control. But in situations where you have fog lamps behind a firewall, then or maybe you have limited connectivity. Maybe you have at a remote site that's maybe solar powered, and you only want to bring up that connectivity maybe an hour a day. Then you can leverage the management agent that we have for FogLAMP, and it will, instead of FogMAN pushing to FogLAMP, the FogLAMPs will be configured to call home at appropriate times, and that'll be available in this beta cycle. And then a couple other features to call out that will be available later in the beta cycle are the ability to manage filters and events, which today are not there. Actually, any questions on what I've talked about so far? All right. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I've actually set up 2 new fog lamps. So I'm going to go discover them and bring them into management just to show you how that's done. So the first thing we'll do is we go into the history page and we want to create a new version. So you can't, the way this works by design is that you can't change an existing version. You really want to think of a version that's in the field has already been thought out and is now deployed. And if you want to make changes, what you have to do is create a new version such that you can always roll back to a previous one. Well, let me actually first call out too that if we wanted to roll back, say to 1.2.0, I could click on it in the history page and I could click the deploy button and it would actually roll that previous version back out. So then you'd be back out at 1.2.0. Instead, what we'll do, we'll create a new version and we'll call this version 1.4.0. And we'll add 2 new pumps. FogLAMPs and pumps. And the parent can be, you can base it on any previous version. By default, it's based on the version that was most recent, the 1.3.0. So we'll create that version. And now we see there's a new version 1.4.0 here. And we have a new warning up here saying you're viewing editing version 1.4.0. It's a new version not yet deployed. So that's a good warning because as you're going through and making changes, you should know that those exist only inside FogMAN and not out in the real world. Okay, so we could go and manually add the fog lamp. So we could go in here and we could give them the address, name and address, and authentication information. But instead, we'll click the Discover button, and it'll find. So it now found these 2 fog lamps, 24 and 25. And this happened very quickly, but there's a couple states it goes through. So once they're in managed state, then that means they're now under the control of FogLAMP or FogMAN. So we click Done, and now we can see there are 2 additional fog lamps in this stack, 24 and 25. And we can see that there's nothing south and nothing north for them. So we can now go to the machines page, and for pump 4, which I created before, we can add a connection, and we'll use an existing template. We'll say we want to measure the pressure, and we'll say this is pump 4 pressure, and we'll send it to FogLAMP 24. And it already knows that pressure is going to leverage the software, the sinusoid plugin that was pre-set up in the template. And then the asset name is the name that that'll be used in this case for a name inside Pi for this particular tag. And we've used a variable called, which is the default for $name, which is the name of the connection, which in this case is pump 4 pressure. So the tag name inside Pi will be pump 4 pressure. So we'll click save, but we could statically change that to something else if we'd like. And now that is set up, and then we'll walk over to the, we could create another connection if we wanted. We'll go over to Pi, and we'll add a new connection. And we'll send this to OMF Pi server. In this case, I'm going to use a producer token, because that's the way my setup is working right now in this demo. But typically, you would actually use PyWeb API and the documentation that goes with FogMAN walks you through doing the PyWeb API. So we'll give a name to this connection. We'll just say this is Pi1 Fog24, and it's going to come from Fog24 and leverage OMF. And the server host name is already pre-configured as a variable dest address. So previously we configured the IP address of the Pi server. So later, if we change the IP address of the Pi server, for example, all of the FogLAMPs would change their addresses automatically because it's leveraging this variable. And in this case, I'm just going to manually copy and paste the producer token, and we'll save it. And now if I walk back out, so we've made this, we've added to Fog24, we've added pressure, and we've added sending to Pi. And now we'll click deploy.
And you're leaving 25 blank because it's just for this demo. But
yeah, good point. Yeah, typically you would actually fill in Fog25 just for the sake of the demo. I'm not going to do it. Also, you can fill in other. You can connect it to other. Excuse me. You can connect it to other south connections, that sort of thing.
And you can go to multiple northbound destinations?
Yes, yes, that's actually a really good point. Let's see what's going on here. Yeah, you can set it to go to multiple destinations, and you can set it to have multiple south. So you can multiple south, multiple north. It's very flexible in that way. So you can see it moved from, it was empty, and then it went to yellow, and then it went to black, and then it went to green. So what was going on with the Fog24 was that, as I say, it actually was converting it to be managed by certificate. And in order to do that, it needed to restart FogLAMP. So FogLAMP went down for a short period as it was being brought under management. And then another thing to kind of call out is whenever you do a deployment, the deployment will actually only impact, it'll minimally impact the environment as much as possible. So if you make a change to one FogLAMP, it's not going to impact any of the other FogLAMPs. And if you make a change to a FogLAMP, let's say you add a new south plugin, it's not going to impact the other south plugins for that FogLAMP. So you'll continue to collect data from them. And or if you make a configuration change that's is not going to impact existing traffic flow within a FogLAMP, it'll do that. It only brings things down when absolutely necessary and does its best to make sure everything is solid.
And those ingress and egress columns, those are counters. Obviously, they're just going up. Is there a way to see the timestamp of the last successful egress or something like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's not exposed here, but that probably is something that we'll expose in an upcoming rep. From a FogMAN perspective, FogMAN does track that, and we can. So we could actually add an additional column for that sort of thing, or perhaps there might be. Yeah, I have to think about how to expose that, but that's a really good point. That's
because you can't tell other than the green dot there. I mean, it gives you some information, but it'd be better information to see how recent it was, yeah?
Yeah, so it does show you, if you hover over it, it'll show you the last time that, that it talked to the FogLAMP. So in this case, you can see updated September 30, what's that, 8:30:07. But that was the last time that FogMAN communicated to FogLAMP, whereas this is the last time that FogLAMP received some data from the south side. So
yeah, I think both those are important, and with thousands of devices or tens of thousands of devices, hovering over things is probably not, scalable.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing too, that in upcoming revs, we have intentions of, the reason we split out the machines into another page as opposed to South plugins is the health of the machine is, of course, something that's pretty important. And so our intention is in upcoming releases that there will be effectively a green light here, and you can sort based on that. And you can also see the health of the device in the sense that the last time that we received data from it, that sort of thing. There's also some other features too that are underway. One of them is grouping. Speaking of scalability, so it isn't in the GUI right now, but in the back end of FogMAN itself, there's a grouping capability where you can have all of our San Jose devices or all of our pumps across all of our infrastructure, or you can arbitrarily decide how you want to group things, and then you'll be able to visually see the status of each of those and manage those as a group. This here was sorry, in a previous while setting this up, this just indicates that one of the fog lamps, I had a connectivity problem in the past, but actually that's another important feature too, is that FogMAN has the capability that if you have a connectivity problem when it does a deployment, then of course it won't be able to deploy to that particular fog lamp. But the monitoring engine, it registers that with the monitoring engine, and then when the monitoring engine is able to connect with that fog lamp, it will automatically redeploy that change. And then you also have kind of an emergency fallback in that if we go to a fog lamp device, let's say that you had a fog lamp device that just died. Let's just say somebody took a hammer and accidentally hit it. What you can do is you can actually redeploy a fog lamp, just an empty fog lamp on a new gateway, and then you have to give it the same IP address as the original one, and then you can come into this screen and you can click redeploy fog 11, and what it'll do is it'll find that new fog lamp at that IP address and bring it back under control, and then completely install the appropriate software and the appropriate configuration, all that sort of thing. So we've really put some effort into making it so that it's quite robust, that if things go wrong in terms of connectivity or in other ways that you can have confidence you can bring your system back to where it needs to be. Does that make sense? Any other thoughts or questions? Great. Okay. And as I think I don't know if there's Michael or Frank pointed out.
I do have a question here on the deployment. When you've got these versioned images for each of the fog lamps and the targets, do you manage the entire image of that destination machine, or do we have a separate MDM management issue for the OS and the prerequisites for things that have to be on that machine before the fog lamp can be deployed?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So FogMAN is exclusively managing FogLAMP. However, one of the things it does, so for example, when you deploy a new package, a new FogLAMP package onto one of these devices, one thing that it will do is it'll do a apt update. So you can control apt update, and you can point the fog lamps to a cache of your own local Linux cache, and you can make choices about what packages are in those caches. So in that sense, you can use FogMAN to you can use FogMAN to update the OS. Using apt, you can update to the latest of what you define as the appropriate latest. So, but it's a really good question, because depending on your needs, there are some folks who may want to do patch management through another system like Puppet or Chef, or there's other systems out there, such as Eve or other sorts as well. IBM has a nice system for that as well. Any other questions or thoughts? All right. Yeah, and then as someone pointed out, you can see now that there's data flowing through from for that FogLAMP. So that's everything I had for the demo. The next piece I can do is I can walk you through. I'll skim through this very quick. There's a quick start guide, and so it walks through installation, which is pretty straightforward. You basically, it's delivered as two Debian packages. And so what you want to do is you basically do a apt update, apt upgrade. If you're a Linux kind of guy, those should be very familiar to you, or gal. And then you install the Debian package. And then there's some info on seeing the status and help. Typically, you won't use those kinds of things. Typically, once FogMan's running, you won't dig into the guts of it. Then there's the you install the Debian package, the GUI, and then everything beyond that is all inside FogMan itself. So actually, I will call this out for your info. So FogMan leverages OAuth 2 to do authentication, and so I'm not sure how I can simulate that. Yeah, I can't. Let me see if I can blow this up, but you'll see when you install it. So because FogMan leverages or uses OAuth 2 for authentication, there needs to be a proper certificate, an HTTPS certificate inside the FogMan. And of course, we can't ship with one because you've got to actually get one for the domain that you want. But it ships with a valid certificate but it's just not yet known by your browser. So when you first bring FogMan up, it would try to do REST calls back to FogMan, but it wouldn't be able to because the certificate isn't yet accepted by your browser. So what you need to do is this message will come up the first time you run it, and you click on a link, and then you'll get a second window that looks like this, and you go into the advanced, and then once you go into advanced, you can click accept this, and it'll go. But that only exists until you have later have a certificate for FogMan. And let's see, then yeah, then you'll get this. You'll proceed and you'll go on. So then you log in, and basically the next thing just runs through the pages that I just ran through. So there's the FogLAMP page, the machines page, external systems page, the history and a little bit of versioning about or information about the versioning, user management, configuration, audit log, and GUI settings. And then it walks through, if you install a FogLAMP, this is kind of an important step. So if you've installed FogLAMP in the past, you may have installed it from a package. And because FogMan really instructs the FogLAMPs to install from remote packages so that you can have a package repository to control those. What you'll actually want to do is set up you'll install an Ubuntu server. And when I say server, on a small device or a VM, and then you'll add a repository to it, which points to the latest FogLAMP. And so, and this is how FogMan will instruct FogLAMP to update its FogLAMP software. So you'll install FogLAMP in this means. Hopefully that makes sense. So installing via repo. And then once the FogLAMP is up, you'll come back and you'll do what I just did there, where you'll discover the FogLAMP. and then you'll see it in the list. And in this case, and you can walk through and in this case, we're going to change the name of the fog lamp. So, and this let me just show you real quick. Each of the fog lamps has a name, and you can change that name. And so I've already pre-built these ones as a fog 11, 12, 13. But what you probably want to do is go in and change the name. And actually to do that, well, the docs will run through it. I'll show you inside the docs. But we changed the name to something more meaningful up in here. In this case, we're going to change it to San Jose Turbine. And you don't want to change the IP address. That's the IP address that was discovered. So if you, unless you're intending to change the fog lamp IP address itself. And then also, actually, I should mention too, it calls out here, you actually don't want to change any of the other configuration. You might want to change the name, but that would be about it.
And do you need to put out a new version when you're just renaming?
I believe you do. I'm pretty certain you do. I'm pretty certain that you can't actually make any changes without, yeah, I'm actually quite, the more I think about it, I'm quite sure. So yeah, you'd have to have a new version to do that. And good question. And then next we'll add a machine. And in this case, so there are a number of machines defined and templates defined for those. But if you run into a scenario, we don't have all of the south plugins or all the north plugins as templates yet. So if there's ones you run into that you're interested in investigating, let us know and we can work with you to put together the appropriate templates for those. But there are a number of machines built in, so you could choose one of those. In this case, we're just going to choose a signal generator is for this in this doc. And when you create a machine as a signal generator, there's 3 different templates that are defined for it. One is a sinusoid, one is a random walk, it's just randomly moves around, and one is a ramp where it increases or decreases at a configured rate. And in this demo, we choose sinusoid, and we're in this case, we're just going to call it temperature. And then once we set it up, then it's in the machine list and connected to that fog lamp. And so then we're going to connect we're going to actually deploy that. And then at that point, you can see the thing up and you can see data going into it. And you can see that this temperature has been added to it. And next, we'll configure a PI configuration. This section here walks through a little bit of detail of how you can now see in the versioning section, how you now see that this has gone to live and to locked, and you see the deployment date. And we can also walk through the details of it if we open up that version. And next we'll add a PI server.
Bill,
So
before you go to the next section, to follow on with Frank's comment, if we have a bunch of devices that need to be renamed according to a pattern, either some regex or some known structural pattern, is there a way to do that in bulk, or would that require N versions or just one version change?
Yeah, it's a good question. So there isn't in the GUI. However, typically if I were doing that, you would like to do it as in a scripted manner, so you can actually. That's how I would personally do it. We probably, in fact, we almost certainly will have features in the future that allow that sort of thing inside the GUI. But
it doesn't need to be in the GUI. It just needs to be possible. So the question really was: is it one version change, like in bulk?
Yeah, so that's, in fact, that's exactly the idea behind versioning, is that a version is a bulk change. And so you could choose to do things individually, but in this typical example, or in the example you gave, you would create a new version, and then you would make each of the changes, and then you would deploy that version.
And where would the changes live in terms of the pattern, the regex pattern of what I want to name those things based on whatever criteria? Is there a some list that you have that you pipe into the configuration command, or?
Yeah, I would. So FogMAN itself doesn't have a capability to make like a regex change, but what you could do, and would be relatively simple, would be to get the existing names and do the regex yourself,
Right.
and then deploy the names from that. So in that sense, the what would be stored inside FogMAN would be the original names and the new names. And then but if you wanted to maintain the history of the regex things that you did, that would be external.
Okay, got it. Cool, thanks.
Yeah, yeah, and we can certainly help with if you'd like to play with that. So let's see. So this creates a new version. This is 1.10, which will connect to a Pi server, and so now it's added the version. And we go into the external systems page, click add. Yeah, actually, let me further expand on that last point. So everything that you can do in the GUI for FogMAN, you can do via REST. And in fact, for a lot of, well, I shouldn't say a lot, there are some users who want, a pure GUI experience. But there's some users who, like I would count myself in the second group, who would actually prefer to do everything via REST. You want to have a set of tools that tie into other tools you've got. That's, if you want to deploy some new, some new system, that you just click a button and it happens. And so everything that you see inside this GUI is accessible via REST. You can query the previous versions. What's in previous versions. You can deploy new situations, you can roll back, you can do pretty much everything through Rust. So hopefully and that's not documented inside here, but if anybody wants to play with that, we're happy to support you. And let's see, so we'll set up a Pi server. So we'll choose a template on the external system. We did add, and you notice how there's a drop-down list of devices. Each one of these ultimately comes from a template list. So again, this is just like on the south side there were templates. Here there are templates as well. And so for and so there exists a template for a Pi server. And we enter an IP address for the Pi server. And this one will be done via Pi Web API. And so instead of a producer token, there's a username and password that's entered there. And then that's configured. And then you click deploy, and it'll push it out to that Pi server. And then you'll see ingress and egress data. And let's see what else we got here. Yeah, we can now walk through the new version and see the changes that were made there. And we can actually then we can walk back to the version 1.0, like I was showing you, and you can go into other pages and see, in fact, now the external system, the Pi system is gone because we're looking at version 1.0. And we can see there's no north configured on the FogLAMP side because we're looking at version 1.0. And in this case, we're actually clicking deploy. So we're actually redeploying version 1.0, just with the thought that maybe we didn't want that after all. And so now we'll see the ingress going up and the egress not going up because in this configuration, there's no Pi server defined. But now we'll redeploy version 1.10. So we will click back on 1.10, and now it says you're viewing editing version 1.10, and it's not yet deployed. And So if we click deploy, then we're back to the state where we were before, where the Pi server is deployed. So you could do this. I mean, this is just with a single fog lamp, but you could do this across lots and lots of fog lamps where you can roll between versions. And this walks through the individual pieces. So if you wanted to change some advanced configuration inside a fog lamp here too, you'd also need to create a version and then make changes and then push that version out. Same concept with schedules. And same concept with plugin, with the software, the plugin software. And then lastly, a little bit about user management. So by default, this is, you'll see you only have an admin user, and you can create new users who can be admin, editor, view, and then it'll send an email to that person to be verified. So that's what we got. Any thoughts? Any questions?
One thing I would say, Bill.
Yes, please. What did I lie about, Mark?
No, it wasn't. You didn't lie about anything, Bill. But you perhaps didn't make clear to everyone. The templates aren't just things that we provide. You will and can create your own. So if you've got, for instance, a standard setup for your Pi server, you can template that so that you don't have to, with every single time you add a Pi server to each fog lamp, put all the information in manually. You can put that in a template, then apply that template to every fog lamp, and you won't need to be re-entering information every time on each one. So it's very much designed that you can build your own templates up, and in later versions it will be GUI to allow you even to do that, so that you'll be able to go in and have these things tailored to your own environment without having to do duplication.
Yeah, thank you.
So,
A question about FogLAMP and Fledge. I noticed you didn't mention Fledge at all, but that seems to be a big part of the whole Dianomic story. So where does Fledge fit in all this? And do Fledge devices basically get treated as peers, or are they different?
Yeah, good question. So Fledge is the open source version of FogLAMP, and which is freely available and got a great community, and I'm excited about that. FogMAN only works with the FogMAN is a proprietary product, and it only works with FogLAMP, which is also a proprietary product. As I say, the code is the same for FogLAMP and Fledge, but FogLAMP is the licensed version. So Fledge will not work under FogLAMP, under FogLAMP.
Okay, thanks.
Any other thoughts, questions? Any other suggestions? Any on future features?
+1 for supporting Fledge.
Yeah, that's not likely to happen. But we can certainly discuss it. Yeah. Any other questions? Any other thoughts?
Yeah, what are the options for northbound targets other than OSI on Pi?
Let's see. So there exists today, I think about a dozen North plugins. So you can send to things like Kafka or Splunk or GCP, Google Cloud, or MATLAB, HarperDB, InfluxDB. Yeah, there are a number of number ones out there.
Cool, thank you.
But,
there is a list on the Read the Doc site, I must admit, although it's hard to remember them all. I think one you did miss, Bill, was OPC UA.
oh yes, of course, OPC UA is an important one.
Sorry, that was a destination. That was a northbound or south?
We have both.
Okay, so this will connect to and read UA namespaces
Yes.
and pull them and also emit as a UA source. Nice work.
Yes. So
Yeah.
you can take other sources of data and admit it as UA.
So it could be each little FogLAMP could be an aggregator of a number of UA devices and then emit them as a collection.
Yes, it could. And equally, if you've got a device that isn't an OPC UA device, you can
make it
add
one.
that into
Yeah.
the whole object structure of the OPC UA server as well.
Well, that's nice. Yeah, that's good work.
The other northbound connection that wasn't mentioned was also to another FogLAMP. So you can have FogLAMP to FogLAMP communication and use FogLAMP itself as an aggregator or a hierarchy piece.
Cool, thank you. Any other thoughts or questions? All right. Well, I think each of you has the code and the docs for this. Look forward to interacting. Ashwin, what's the best way for them to get support? Should we?
Well, all of you were reached out directly from Peter, and so he would be a great resource to contact. Otherwise, if you want to just email to our general, it's info@dianomic.com, of course. But of course, please feel free to contact Peter directly, and he can also route you our way for technical support. Actually, since most of you all have interacted with myself, Bill, and Mark in some capacity, feel free to email us directly too if you wish.
Yeah. Awesome. Any other thoughts or questions?
No, thank you very much.
Great. Well, thanks everyone.
Bill, there's one. Do you have a timeline for the GA?
GA, we're looking at near the end of the year. So, and it's kind of interesting. So there's a set of features that we really want to have we have customers that are actually going to have this deployed near the end of the year. And, but we're considering about whether it's testable and usable in a GA capacity even before that as it stands. So the idea is today there are some things about it. Maybe it's not. There perhaps stability issues, for example, where we really want to test those out, and those are the things that are really critical for GA. But there's also features, especially events and notifications and filters that we'd like to get in there. So certainly by the end of the year, but we may have something before then too. Any other thoughts? Great. All right. Hey, thanks everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks,
Appreciate you guys showing up.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye.